What's up, YouTube? Just when we thought we'd get through the weekend without maybe too much static, we got a trade going on. It looks like Demar Derozan is going to find himself with the Sacramento Kings. Bulls getting some compensation back. Not what we wanted, but it is what it is. But let's talk about all of that and some because somebody has to talk about it, right? Somebody has to get into what this trade means. I'm not a huge fan of it, but at the end of the day, we're going to let him walk for nothing. So you might as well get something. You have to get something. But let's get into it right after this. Listen, if you're new to the channel, it's your boy P.Kidd. This is the Windy City Breeze. We got breaking news, man. Pat is in the middle of 10 buck 2 somewhere. So he hit me up like, hey, P, you got to go live. DeMar just got traded. It was like, say less, my boy. Hey, DeMar Derozan finds himself in a 3-team trade potentially that sends him to the Sacramento Kings, which for him, as someone who appreciates his game, I'm not mad at. So shout out to him and everything Debo's done for the city. But it's a 3-team deal that gives sign a trade, by the way, that gives DeMar $67 million, 3 years, $67 million in a trade that sends him to the Sacramento Kings, Harrison Barnes to the San Antonio Spurs, which was a name I would have expected us to grab. And the Kings are trading Chris Duarte in 2 second-round draft picks and cash compensation to the Bulls as part of the deal as well. It is one of those things where it's like, hey, we knew that Debo wasn't going to stay. I'm be honest with you. Anybody that's been watching, keeping tabs on this particular trade, you knew it wasn't going to happen. Like, realistically, the Bulls are in full rebuild mode. It's not a retool. This is not a maybe we can add some things. This is full rebuild mode. The only other 2 pieces left on this particular roster are Zach and Vooch, which anybody would have a brain would say Vooch is probably going to be dealt somewhere. And if they can give rid of Zach, which it seems like they can't, looks like they won't. Now, Anthony Wilson says 76 mil. Several reports say 67. I tell you what, let's just split the odds. It's about $70+ million. This is something relatively new. We'll get more details as they come out, but it's a 3-year deal for sure. And the Bulls are not getting much back outside of that. So realistically, I'm gonna say this: it's a sign and trade. So I expected once I saw sign and trade, I'm like, okay, with the Kings, there's a couple of names I would want back. Harrison Barnes as a shooter. Okay, all right, I get that. But there's a couple of young fellas on that team that I thought maybe the Bulls would have made a trade for. Debo is still a 25-point-a-game scorer. He is going to garner some type of attention for you to kind of make some commitment to him. We got Chris Duarte back. We got another guard back. My guy, we got another guard back. I don't understand that logic. I understand that the Bulls are in this like ebb and flow of trying to find pieces that they can pair with Zach LaVine and get rid of his contract. But it seems like we let literally our number 1 or number 2 player go with nothing. And when I mean nothing, we got some cash back. We got Chris Duarte, who again 6'5". I'm trying to find a way to like this deal. I feel like this was one of those we were going to lose, so we might as well get something back. And this was the something. This is like the consolation prize. I'm not necessarily excited about it, but I'm not going to make this a whole Debbie Downer live. I am going to say this. I'm happy for Debo. I think the route that the Bulls were going, we didn't fit DeMar Derozan's timeline. Like, we really just didn't. Like, the man's 34, 35 years old. We're in a full rebuild. It's doing the right thing by him. Thank you for your service. Like, thank you for everything you've done for the city. Thanks for giving us the memories. You've been rocking with us. We've live called a lot of those games. DeMar has made some of our most viral clips possible. We're happy for DeMar in that respect because the Kings are a team that could compete, could do some damage out in the West Coast. It sends him to the West Coast, by the way. So all of that, I mean, listen, I just want to say thank you for his service. Now that we got that out the way, what are we doing? Why did we do it? What happened? Like, what's happening here? I don't understand what are we trying to accomplish here? I'm lost in this whole thing. Like, there's so many other players that we could have gotten. There's so many other things that we could have done, and it really just felt like we laid down on this one. Like, it really does feel like the league knows that we're kind of like stuck between a rock and a hard place, and we're not getting any like AK is not fleecing anybody in this particular round, and it's kind of showing. And I'm not really happy about that, but it kind of is what it is. I see a couple people in the chat. Man, listen, Samuel, I appreciate you. Brandon, I appreciate you. Donald, I see you rocking with me. Oh, listen, over 100 in the chat, over 100 in the chat, 100. Y'all know how we rock. Listen, he said P.Kidd got on a real men who can cook shirt. Hey, listen, low key, I was cooking when that news dropped. Like, I literally had a bunch of like spices and stuff all over the place, and I saw the tray, and like everything went up in the air, and I was like, I bet we got to go live. So, yeah, no, like two things happened. I hit Pat's like, I can't do it. Just go live. Bet, let's rock. So, shut up. Like that's a fire joke, but like anyway, it's like I was cooking. Like, the food is still in the oven. It might burn while I'm down here. We just might have to share that L. Bum organization. John does not feeling this at all. Like, Jesus, he's like, bum organization. He ain't. I get you. I get you. Hey, listen, I'm not a fan either. Finally, let's hurry up and get Vooch, Zach, and Javon Carter to here immediately. Hey, listen, Javon Carter needed to be involved in this trade. I think we could have just gave him away to one of those teams, and that'd have been great. Like, nobody likes him. Hayes don't like him. Pat don't like him. Listen, well, no, Pat was actually trying to defend that man to high heaven. I don't know why, but it just didn't work out. But like, yo, it is crazy. Ray just says, what are the details? Again, let's get into it one more time, just for those who are tuning in, man, because I'm seeing two different reports right now that say $67 million, but apparently it's a 3-year, $67 to $76 million deal that sends DeMar DeRozan, sign a trade that sends DeMar DeRozan to the Sacramento Kings, Harrison Barnes to the Spurs, and the Bulls are getting Chris Duarte in cash. I said Chris Duarte in some cash. Yeah, there you go. So, boom. Interesting trade there. Interesting trade there. Now, again, this is still relatively new because I see some people put some details in the chat. I'm also seeing some different things happening here. I'm waiting for some official things. I'm gonna load up Twitter real quick because you know how things go nowadays. Like, the reality of it is we probably get 1,000 different things done right here, but I do want to sit there and say this. Spaz out, you're absolutely right. We are restarting young, so we have to get used to us trading away these players. DeMar doesn't fit our timeline. Listen, DeMar didn't fit our timeline. Drummond doesn't fit our timeline. Vooch really doesn't fit our timeline. If we are stuck with keeping Zach, maybe Zach fits our timeline. But like on the real, I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, that relationship has gone so far south. Who knows? And I'm gonna be honest with you. Yes, it is 2 second-round picks too, Bob. I do apologize. I forgot the 2 second rounds on this rehash. It is 2 second-round picks. So we did get some compensation back. Now, I will say this. Let's leverage it this way. The Bulls did do right by DeMar. I like that comment. Absolutely, we did do right by DeMar. But let's leverage it this way. The Bulls are clearly in a rebuild. They're clearly trying to dump Zach LaVine's contract. They're having a hard time doing so. So this is the opportunity where they picked up some additional assets that they could probably include in dumping his particular contract with the team that would take him on, because that seems to be the prevailing rumor, that you can't even give Zach LaVine away at this particular point. You have to include assets. And this is one of the ways in which they've actually been able to secure that. They've actually secured a player who, again, Chris Duarte has had some moments. Now, he was on a team where he didn't get much tick. He's not going to get much shine, but he did have some moments. And, you know, maybe this is something that kind of develops here, but the Bulls them still have pieces that, you know, if we're going to rebuild, maybe they start getting really creative with the package just to unload that contract, because to be honest with you, it's just not going to happen. And in my personal opinion, I still very, very much think that the Warriors are in one of those landing spots for Zach. it may take a little massaging on that one. Pause. But like that, I really do think that situation is not dead as some people reported. I do think that there's an opportunity for that to happen for the Chicago Bulls. And so I'm not saying they're going to get much back, but if we're going to rebuild, get used to the young Bulls. Get used to seeing Josh Giddey. Get used to seeing Kobe White. Hopefully, P. Will who's technically on a really nice contract now that I actually removed my emotions from it. Get used to P. Will. Hopefully, he becomes a household name. Get used to Ayo Dosunmu. Like, roll with the young guys because that's exactly what we're doing. And give them the opportunity to actually go out there and earn and prove it. And so, realistically, I'm not upset, but it does show that we are absolutely rebuilding. Now, what I don't like about this particular trade is what we heard AK say on the platform versus what we heard, what we see are two different things technically. Now, he didn't sit there and say, he said that they want to be competitive, they wanted to compete and things of that nature. And technically, you're always in that mode of competing. But this isn't competing, this is rebuilding. When you're rebuilding, very rarely do you find yourself in a competing situation for what we would want, championships, playoffs, and stuff like that. You're now dealing with a young core who has to learn each other, actually develop and things of that nature. So we're now on the ride of pretty much new beginnings. And all that being said, it's not a bad thing. Like, it's not a bad thing, but just be honest about the direction. Like, that's all I care about. Like, if you know that this didn't work, we have to reset. Cool. Let the fans know. Chicago is one of those fan bases where I think if you're upfront with us, we'll rock with you. And it seemed as if that they were trying to hold off so long without really saying it. But it's like, no, dog, you're rebuilding. It's okay. You're not going to be able to salvage a lot of this. It's all right. Let it go. And I think realistically, this is what's happening. No hurter in return. Absolutely no hurter in return. Chef Mag is like, sell the team. Hey man, listen, I would say this. I'm not on the elk of always telling some billionaire to sell his team or multimillionaire to sell his team. It's an asset. He got, like, no one would sell their team realistically. It is what it is. I like this comment because it actually does. These are my sentiments. Billy does coach better with a young team. I do believe that. I've said many times on the live and things of that nature that Billy Donovan is a much better coach when he has players that pretty much replicate what he was able to do on a college realm. Billy Donovan's entire coaching career, both college and NBA, is actually pretty good. Like, record-wise and stuff like that. Before he got to the Bulls, he was a winning coach. But I do lean on the fact that, one, you're only as good as your players, and two, he didn't go very far without having what we would consider, a legendary play. Like, prime Russ is prime Russ. Like, let's be for real. Like, prime Russ is prime Russ. But I do believe that realistically, this entire roster is someone who can buy into Billy's system. They come with a lot of inexperience, which gives him something to kind of coach to. We've been hearing social media has actually allowed us to tap into these older players. It's very hard for some coaches to come in and coach certain players who make more than you. They have the experience, stuff like that. It's a whole different whirlwind of emotions. It's a whole different ball game. And some coaches just don't thrive in that particular environment or with those type of personalities. I think Billy now is in his element now. I think that's finally something we can all admit. And hey, let's hope it works out because Billy's going to be here. These young players are going to be here. And we need something to root for. And Kobe's absolutely shown that he's on the rise. He's emerging. Technically, he should have won Most Improved. Still don't know how he lost that. That argue with your mom on that one, I guess. But the reality of it is we are at full rebuild. I don't care what anyone says. Fire AK already because of his incompetence. I don't think it's incompetence. I think I don't know how much how much of the decisions he's made is him being incompetent, or how much of the decisions he's made are due to the limitations of his situation. You got to remember, when you have a owner like Jerry Reinsdorf, you see how Jerry's handles his other professional teams. So you always have that caveat of wondering what's there. We do know that Jerry has had direct involvement in some type of deals or overriding some type of deals that they had going down. So it's like, I don't know exactly what AK can and can't do. I do know that he is going to be the scapegoat for whatever happens here. And then Jerry is going to be, Jerry's still going to be the owner. So that's it. That's it right there. That Lonzo injury messed up bad. It did, but at the same time, we also could have had opportunities to go out there and get another point guard, and we didn't. We had another opportunity to re-sign a point guard, we didn't. So I think, yeah, I can't necessarily, just put everything on Lonzo. It did suck, but that's also like 2.5 years ago at this point. Jesus, that's that long ago. It's like 2 years ago since he last played. That's crazy. That's crazy. Uh, Raging Oracle. It's maxing Zach and keeping him in after 3 years of proof that he's not a max guy. Yeah, that is incompetence. I've had some pretty hot takes on that one. Realistically, I do think that Zach could have been that guy. And we are also talking about max money for a player who, if you look at the market, he's absolutely worth the money that he was going to get. He's absolutely worth the money we gave him. And it was more than just signing him to a max. It was about letting the entire league know, hey, if you come here and you actually rock with us, we will take care of you. And so it's a lot of things that had to happen within that particular system, within that particular deal. It was more than just the narrative of taking care of Zach. The organization in itself was rebuilding its image. We have to keep that in mind as well. And we also have to get out of the realm of thinking, hey, Zach, a player like Zach who could get you 25, 5, and 5, realistically, isn't worth 215 million over 5, I think it was, maybe 5 or 6, whatever it is. That's where the money is now. I know that number sounds wild to say, 200 million over so many years, but that's literally what the market is saying. The market is telling you all, hey, if you're a max player, even if you're number 2 on your team, the max contract, if you hit certain thresholds, this is what it affords you. It just is what it is. Now, whether or not that makes sense to some people, but Zach at his peak, I think on his contract remaining left as high as year is going to be $48 million. That's still going to be nearly 20 million less than some of the people you have as premier guards and stuff in the league. It's actually going to be like a discount. Zach got a Chris Middleton type deal 5 years later, just based with the higher cap, new market, stuff like that. So it is what it is. Zach is a 3. Hey, listen, you can say what you want to say, whether he's a 3 or not. That doesn't matter. He got the money. So yes, Chris, they just gave Jason Tatum 314. So think about that. Like over a similar course of time, another player, and even Jaylen Brown, is getting $100 million more than Zach. And there's a difference between those players. Is it $100 million more? I don't know, but that's what it is. So I'm just tired of seeing all my teams stuck in purgatory. Listen, I'm with you. But here's a one thing I will say. Let's not sit there and be so focused on what we didn't get, because the reality of it is we knew if Demar was going to leave regardless. So we knew that we were kind of handcuffed to some aspect. We also know that because of his age, he wasn't going to get the same type of love that maybe if Zach had performed like Demar had, like that will be a different situation. So we knew that there were some like limitations to this deal. And there's so many teams. There's only so many teams that actually could use a DeMar, because DeMar has shown that he kind of needs the rock and he needs to do things. I'm kind of interested in the fit. Like the Kings are a run and gun team. The Kings are a very fast paced team. I don't see how DeMar fits that system realistically. I know he's a walking bucket, things of that nature. Don't get me wrong. I love Debo's game. Debo's game is very similar to a lot of my favorite players all time in the NBA. So I'm not hating on him by any stretch of the imagination. But when we talk about the Sacramento Kings, we're talking about a team that gets to it up and down the court, very fast pace. That ain't what DeMar has ever really been a great compliment for, if I'm being honest. Like he's mostly a half court set guy. And maybe this is them trying to bolster up that aspect of their game, because the one thing I've loved about the Warriors, where they've kind of derived their entire system from, Mike Brown being there and everything like that, the Warriors can go half court set. They tend to not do it often, but they can go in. When they do, they can be very effective. Steve Kerr actually has plays for that. The Kings, not so much. It kind of got a little choppy. You kind of just find yourself looking at, De'Aaron Fox just go to work on ISO basis. Malik Monk is a great number 2 off the bench, he's not necessarily a number 2 starter. Realistically, I think he averaged like 16 points a game or something like that. He had his spurts, but like realistically, yeah. Kid, check ESPN. All right, bet. Let's find out. Chuck was hey, listen, I'm gonna check ESPN while you're here. DeMar isn't a great 3-point shooter. Right. He's not a great 3-point shooter. I'm like, I really don't know why they made the move for him. And then on top of that, they gave up Harrison Barnes, who is a good 3-point shooter. I'm kind of confused, but the reality of it is it does put him in a potential. It puts him in a situation where he gets to compete. And the Bulls were not going to compete or be in a position to compete the same way the Kings are. So I kind of like that. I kind of like that. So let's see. Somebody said check ESPN. What's going on ESPN? Let's see what happened. They only need DeMar for 2 minutes a game. Good thing because they got him for 3 years. Okay. Hey, don't be selling my man short. So ESPN is now reporting this as a 3-year, $74 million deal. Again, I've seen the report that say 67, another one says 74. At the end of the day, he's moving on, realistically. It kind of makes me wonder if this was a 3-team trade, there was no opportunity for us to get something other than Chris Duarte. Like, I don't see him fitting on this team either. Now, don't get me wrong. The kid could probably hoop. And this is probably one of those AK moves where he's like trying to find some, diamond in the rough. I saw somebody actually post Duarte's, grease stats, which great for Duarte. But the reality of it is, nah. Like, the reality of it, nah, my G. I don't, nah. I'm good. Okay. I'm good. I got enough guards to develop. I gotta see Kobe develop. I gotta see Josh Giddey work with this lineup. I gotta see Patrick Williams actually take shape. Like, listen, that's the other caveat to this as well. I hate to sound like I'm jumping around. But now we get to see if Patrick Williams is the guy we thought he could be, or some thought he could be. I'm gonna reserve my opinion because I feel like no one's static. There's no one's static in the league. Everyone can improve their game. I was really harsh on Kobe, rightfully so. He did play like trash early on, and look at where we at now. He really put his mind to it in the offseason, really developed his game. And now I'm looking at like, hey, no, he really can hoop now. Like, he is really someone who, compared to his peers, can really get busy. All right, let's give this guy a chance. I hope Patrick Williams has the same leap. I hope he does, because Patrick Williams, unlike Kobe, he was drafted higher. He had a lot more. The expectations are a little higher, in my opinion. The talk of the town is a lot better, in my opinion. Like, we had a lot riding on him developing. Now we get to see whether or not he really has it. And so I want to see it. I want to see it. And that's a caveat too. Like, that's the one thing where if you are someone who wanted to see a lot back for DeMar, it's kind of like, why? Like, if you were a Patrick Williams fan, this is a blessing for you. There is nobody taking shots away from DeMar. There's nobody replacing him on the pecking order from a small forward, power forward position. Not that I'm aware of. Like, realistically, even the kid that we drafted, I mean, they can play on the same. There's no, like, literally the only person we got to worry about is if Billy Donovan gets crazy and say, hey, P. Will, I want you to play center. It's like, why would you do that, Billy Donovan? But we've seen some worse things. There's nothing stopping him. There's nothing stopping him. So I do think this is a situation where we can possibly see, and I'm going to say this with the expectation that Zach is not on the team. So I'm going to give you 2 scenarios. I want y'all to rock with me, right? The scenario that Zach LaVine's not on the team, you have your starting lineup in Josh Giddey, Kobe White. I'm going to say, I just lost his name, Matas, P. Will, and Vooch. Not liking that center right there, but okay, I know Vooch can get busy. I've seen Vooch get busy in the Olympics right now. I'm happy with that, right? I'm cool with that. But if Zach is still on the team, then that's when things get interesting. And then that's when it's like, hey, So we have to consider both scenarios because, like, realistically, if Zach is still on the team, Zach is starting. Like, one, I pay you too much money to sit, so you're going to be the starting two. Is Josh the starting one at that point? Is Kobe the starting one? That's an interesting question. Have no idea. Depends on how Billy plays it realistically. But Patrick Williams in both scenarios should be this. It should be in the starting lineup. So Patrick Williams is going to get more shots regardless. And if you're a P. Will fan, this is something that you should like. This is something that no matter what, push come to shove, worst case scenario, Zach is still here. P. Will still starting. The only detriment to that is Kobe White probably doesn't take the same leap that we want him to. So that it is what it is. P. Will is a wing /3. Listen, Rajan, I agree with you. I like him at the 3. Billy ain't played him at the 3 sometimes, and he couldn't play him at the 3. So, I mean, we kind of got to see what it is. And realistically, P. Will is big enough to play both Pauls. His stature allows him to play both positions. He could play small forward, he could play power forward. So I'm good with it. I'm happy as this open us P. Will. Yep. Sanago don't jump. Listen, I would say this. Sanago is somebody who I wanted to see on the floor. He don't jump. Anybody remember that guy who played with the Spurs? I forgot his name, but he like tore his ACL and NCL or something like that. But it was like years ago, like 15 years ago. Sanogo reminds me of that guy. I know somebody in this chat's going to remember this. He played for the Spurs. Like he had no MCL, no ACL. Jesus, what was his name? I think he even got a ring with them too. But he like had a small glimpse of success with the Spurs. Like he had no like crazy leaping ability, but like he would get busy. I forgot his name. I gotta look him up. That's gonna bug me this entire time, bro. Drew Timmy should come to the league. Should come to the Bulls. That man walked straight through. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. Man, I want to stay alive a little longer just because DeJuan Blair. There you go. There you go, Bill. DeJuan Blair. That anybody remember DeJuan Blair, bro? DeJuan Blair used to go crazy a little bit. He said Malik Rose. I don't think it was Malik Rose. I don't think Reggie Jackson. Nah, it wasn't Reggie Jackson. It was DeJuan Blair. I remember that. DeJuan Blair. DeJuan Blair, they said had no ACL or something like that. Like he had torn before he got to the league, and it was like amazing that he actually could play. But he used to go nuts. Boris Diaw never jumped either. Boris Diaw never jumped. That man's crazy. He had no ACLs. Yeah. Whatever it was, bro. Man, that dude used to have, like not jump. He was still getting boards. I remember he had like a 30-point game. I was like, who is this guy? Like, how is this possible? That's a no-go right there. Like, I promise you it is. Oh man. Yeah, average 10 and 10 base. Like he was a walking little bucket for a good minute. Like for a good minute. But I say all that to say, man, like if you're a Bulls fan, if you rock with us, if you've seen, I mean, listen, this ain't the worst roster we've had. We've seen some bad rosters. We've gone through a lot. It could be worse. It could be worse. It could be a situation where we are like, we definitely ain't got nobody to root for. But like, I think we're in a decent position, and I'm actually happy. I'm actually really happy that the Bulls have found a direction. And if you're a real Bulls fan, I think you should be too. Like, we have a direction. We know what we're doing. We know that we're not necessarily competing for a championship next year. It really is about development. Like, unless we make a major splash for a star, like we're not competing without a star. We have people with star potential on our team, and now we get to see whether or not they actually take advantage of that. But the reality of it is we don't have a star anymore, unless you expect Zach LaVine to stay here. I do believe that Zach has star ability. I do believe that he could be considered a star if he gets the opportunity to play without DeMar DeRozan. I'm going to be honest with you. There's not ever two guards outside of, and you can't even say the Celtics because Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown do not play the same position. One is definitively a forward, and the other one is definitively a guard. They don't play the same position. They don't occupy the same space. They do two completely different things. Both are effective in their own way. Zach and DeMar did the exact same thing. They both wanted to operate on the same side of the floor. If you looked at it, they both were shooting guards that were trying to make it work. It has not typically worked like that. You can't sit there and say Stephen and Clay. Steph was a point guard. Clay is a PG. Steph was a point guard. Clay was a shooting guard. Clay barely dribbled the ball. In fact, Clay has 60-point games, barely dribbling the ball. That wasn't going to happen in Chicago. So, like, the reality of it is those two teams, nah, you can't even use that. You can't use that analogy. So, it's very rare do you see two star guards work out. Even if you want to go Phoenix, Phoenix is a good one. Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. Those were both shooting guards, premier shooting guards. Well, guess what? One was barely there, and when he was there, he wasn't very effective because he isn't a point guard. It don't really work that way. You just can't do it. I have not seen it work effectively. If you do have a tandem that's worked, it's very anecdotal. It just doesn't typically work that way. There's a pecking order to it. And so the reality of it is, if Kobe and Zach can coexist, do you want to know why they would? Zach would play the point. I mean, Kobe would play the point. He actually did pretty decent at the point. That would just be the reality of the situation. But you would have a pecking order. There was no clear pecking order with the Bulls with Zach and DeMar. I don't care what anybody says. You tell me what the pecking order was. Like, be for real. Healthy Zach, healthy DeMar. Who's getting the ball? Who's getting the ball? It was DeMar getting the ball. Should it have been DeMar? Probably not. Healthy Kobe, healthy DeMar. I'm talking about Kobe White, not Kobe Bryant. For some who are just tuning in, I don't know why people make that confused. Get that confused. It's so dumb. But DeMar took a step back for Kobe. Kobe took a leap. It is what it is. So Chirac says you have no idea what you're talking about, honestly. Okay, Chirac, do me a favor. Give me the tandem. Give me the tandem that worked out that way. Don't worry, you can't. But I appreciate the view. Guess what? Your interaction, your comment, both helps everything with the live. I appreciate it. Like, go kick racks. Can't have 100 wings and I played it for 3 years. That gotta go. I'm with you, totally with you, Raging. Like, there's not a situation in which I want to see Zach here unless you're going to clearly say Zach is the man and you allow Zach to be who he wants to be. It just is what it is. If you're not going to allow Zach to be Zach and let Zach do what Zach does, then you're probably not going to get the best version of Zach. And you paid him because you paid him like you wanted him to be the guy, so let him be the guy. If you don't want him to be the guy, you got to find a way to get rid of him. And it does not look like we have anything else rocking with this. But at least we know that when there's smoke, there's fire, because they've been talking about this particular thing, talking about this particular trade happening all week. It's finally done. We finally see what we're doing. We clearly see that we are clearly rebuilding, because if we weren't, I think they would have been trying to fight some way, somehow, for some type of star. Didn't happen. So at this point, welcome to the new look of Chicago. It is the young core that we have. We're building around our young guys. Hopefully we get to see them take off and have a successful season under Billy Donovan, who, again, hopefully he's the right coach for this roster, because there are some coaches out there who've gotten a lot out of their young core. I look at Ime Udoka and what he did in Houston. He got a lot out of those young guys. And in my opinion, Billy Donovan has been more like Monty, who got nothing out of Detroit. So hopefully we get a new look Billy with a roster that can actually buy into a system. And That's it. Raging, before I go and ask a couple questions, he said, who left P.Kidd? Who left that we can trade Zach to? I honestly still think the Warriors are desperate to put someone around Steph Curry. I think that's a real possibility. I think the Warriors are done with Andrew Wiggins. Numbers wise, I don't know exactly how that would work. Zach is on an escalating contract, so he actually gets paid more year over year. He also has a $48 million player option at the end of his contract, which makes him a little less enticing for some people. But I mean, it is what it is. Hopefully that works out. I think Andrew Wiggins would help, but that would also, if you're a P. Will guy, I'm not starting P. Will over Andrew Wiggins. If we got to find a forward, like a 3 or 4, I'm giving it to Wiggs, championship experience, things of that nature. So the reality of it is, whoever we trade for, whoever he gets traded to, they got to send somebody back. You know, that somebody's going to get the short end of that stick. So, but it's been real, y'all, man. Listen, we've been live for about 30 minutes. We had to get this news out. So I appreciate y'all rocking with us. All of you all on a Saturday night. I mean, who would have thought, right? But if any more news drops, you know what we'll be. We'll be locking in right here on the Winning City Breeze. We'll be talking about this on Monday. So if you are not a subscriber, please come join the live on Mondays. It gets cracking 6 o'clock. We have the whole crew obviously going to break down this trade and any more others. It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun. But with that being said, I'm about to sign out. You all be safe.